All right. Picture this. Your sales page is alive. Your Instagram post is up. Your first email went out. Maybe it's even on day 2. And all you're hearing is crickets. You've gotten nobody to purchase so far. People are going to the website, but they're not really clicking. This was the exact scenario that one of my clients was in a couple of weeks ago when we launched her group program. It started off painfully slow, but thankfully, with a couple of pivots and mind shift shifts, we were able to turn it around and she actually doubled her enrollment. Today, we're going to be diving into the energetics of launching and kind of how to roll with the punches during the one of the most or more stressful weeks probably of your year, because no matter how hard you plan for launching, when you open up cart, you're putting yourself out there, you're making yourself vulnerable. So it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I will say one of the most make or break it parts of a launch is how you hold your energy from the moment that cart opens. And typically what happens is that we are very much piled on with all of the planning that we just did, all of the writing that we just did. So come open cart, it's kind of like, don't take your foot off the gas kind of thing, which can be immediately deflated if you start to not see anything. So I really do think that the energetics, like if you're listening to this and you're not very much woo like Jess or I, and you're like, okay, next episode, like hold on, because this can make or break if you are drained and exhausted, because people can feel that in your posts and everything.
Yep. Yep. But first, before we start, Merry Swiftness. I was thinking about this today. This is the second Friday of a Taylor Swift album drop that we've been recording, because like last time we did it. And I was like, wow, we've really been recording for a long time. So I was very surprised to just like have that realization that like, oh wow, there's been 2 Taylor Swift album drops on a Friday. I think I was a lot more tired for Tortured Poets because it was a longer album and like a double album, but yeah, it's crazy. And I was kind of thinking about like Taylor launching her album, which I did a whole episode about Taylor's launch strategy a couple of weeks back and go listen to. But like, was she nervous? Like, what are her like energetic practices? Like, does she just like turn off social? I mean, I know she doesn't go on social a lot, but does she just like turn off the world, or is she like sitting there like getting updates about like what everybody is saying about it? Or I was just kind of also imagining like her assistants being like, yeah, and everybody's talking about that song called Wood, where he's literally really surprised. They're
Yeah,
all up late and they're all questioning your choice. What?
that is so funny. Okay, we could make this whole episode about Taylor Swift. So we want to know if you're a Swiftie and you're listening, like on one of our posts, just share what your favorite song is from the album so far, because we want to talk more about it. But we have things to get
Yep.
to.
Okay, so let's go into tip number 1 with maintaining a high vibe launch energy is just acknowledge the stress. Like there is going to be stress in every single launch. I think people think if they can like plan and make sure that all their like I's are dotted and T's are crossed, that everything's going to be okay. But once you open up the cart, like your control, like everything's kind of out of your control. Like you just kind of have to like do your best and then surrender and trust. So I think one of the ways that you can normalize it is just knowing, like, naming it like this is just launch jitters. Like it's not evidence that like anything's going wrong. And really bringing in like whatever like self-regulating practices you need to do. So whether that be walking or meditating or affirmations or journaling, and kind of just getting that like sense of stress, especially if you have a live event, because it's going to show up there off of your plate. And then just kind of like redirecting it into, if things are not going as planned, redirecting it into like looking at the metrics and seeing like what they are telling you, because then you're able to kind of pull out those like strategic pivots. Like I said, I had this happen with a client last week, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And I'm like, should we just not do like an early opened wait list anymore? Because we early opened to the wait list. We had like primed them, but we did a 2-day early bird and no one bought. And then my client had to do a live event, and like I had to like kind of boost her confidence back up because we had just went through 2 days of no sales, and now she needed to get on a live event. Thankfully, after the live event, like people bought, but it was just kind of weird to me.
That's so funny because I'm still an advocate for the wait list. Like I just did a launch with one of my clients where we did wait list and we did her like regular list and we segmented them because was having kind of FOMO of being like, I don't want to like leave people out of the conversation, even though they didn't raise their hands. And like her wait list still overperformed by like 20, 30% versus the full list where I'm like, yeah, you got people coming in from that. But like, if we just worked harder to grow the wait list and shake out those people who didn't necessarily raise their hands. So I don't know, maybe that was like a buyer behavior
It
thing
was
because
just a weird I think it was a couple of things I learned, like, we did it on, like we did the early bird started on Monday. Monday, people are, like, busy. We had an email-only strategy, and I think we were noticing that maybe, like, emails might not have been hitting, like, the actual inbox. They're going to promo, so, like, we needed to kinda layer on, like, that ecosystem strategy where, um
don't get me started on my promotions rant.
but, you know, we took some learnings away, but I think it's just kind of making sure that those people are like really primed and like know the date that it's going to open and when they can enroll and all of that stuff. So,
Well, I mean, I will say, like, in that particular, like, what I know about that launch is that typically when you're promoting a live event, even if you have a wait list, people want to go to the live
yeah,
event.
that's what we thought. I mean, we had people on the wait list by, but they waited after the live event. So they
Yeah.
wanted to like kind of learn more. So I still think it helped. It just kind of like really like rock like threw my client for a loop energetically for a minute, but we were able to recover.
So in this mindset number one or mindset shift number one of acknowledging the stress, like I'm gonna just put my Jess hat on and say systems are self-care and the way that you can systemize and still get into your routine of doing the things that make you feel grounded, doing the things that are maybe something that feels like it can be dropped when you're in this kind of like different energy. So, like launch energy, you're more likely to be getting ready because you have to be on stories or you have to be getting ready for your events and things like that. That could be like, okay, well, I'm going to take my time to get ready today, but I'm going to kick out my meditation practice or I'm going to kick out my morning walk. Do the things that make you feel grounded and don't throw those out because that is what's going to keep you steady through these kind of like 1 week of just like active time. So I want to make sure that we preface that like don't do an or situation, do an and
Yeah, and
situation.
I think this goes back to, like, the more you can have wrapped up and planned before you actually open cart, the better. So, one of the things for this particular client is, like, we had spent a lot of time, effort, energy on preparing for the live event, prepping, like, all the emails and the sales page, but her social strategy, it was kind of just there, like, I guess the plan was for her to, like, just kinda, like, pop up on stories and share organically, and at that point, she did not have, like, the energy, the creativity because she was under so much stress. So, thankfully, I was able to swoop in, and I just started, like, scripting out story I spent, like, 2 hours scripting out a story for every single day with, like, testimonials and all of this so that I was able to, like, feed it to her each day to kinda take some of that, like, lift off. So, that'll be something that we definitely change going into the next launch is making sure that we have, like, not just our emails planned, not just our post plan, but, like, every single day, like, the action items that we're gonna be doing.
Totally. Okay. So moving into mindset shift number two is essentially treating every launch like an experiment, which it is, putting your scientist hat on and looking at things like they are a scientific trial, right? We've designed this beautiful product. We've tested some of the messaging. Now we're going to collect the data. And how do we make sure that we're looking at things that we can pivot in the moment to handle whether that be slow open carts, the mid launch lull, or really kind of boost that like end of launch momentum. But how do we take the numbers and what they're telling us and like really shifting it to build on the momentum now, but also to make next launch way more impactful? And I will say that some people get very stressed about numbers. They look at them and they're like, I don't even know what's going on. But I think that, like, I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but like numbers are very calming to me. Like, give me a truth. They don't give me this blown up like thoughts in my head that are like fueled by my insecurities.
Yeah, because they're not, like, subjective, I guess. There's, like, no emotion tied to them. I can even remember back in, like, retail when I would have to, performance manage or, manage or motivate my subordinates that were underneath me. Like I would always like make sure that they had like a number goal and then tie their performance to that number goal because that's kind of just easier to talk about than like you're just not doing your job than like, hey, your goal was
Yeah.
to make this much in sales or have this conversion and you didn't hit it. So let's talk about how we can like actually fit that. We've talked about how important the launch debrief is after like looking at those numbers because that's really where you're going to like analyze your experiment and then make hypothesis or your next experiments for the next launch. So to put that into context of like real life. So this was the second time that we launched this program for my client. The last launch went well. We had a lowish amount of enrollments we didn't hit our enrollment goal. And we were able to see that we just weren't getting like enough traffic to the sales page. We had anyone that would get to the sales page would convert. We didn't have enough traffic there. So we're like, okay, sales page, good. We don't have to like switch that because you don't want to be switching too many variables at once. Sales page conversion, good. Need to drive more traffic. So then what we did was we're like, okay, we're going to use Instagram has been unreliable this year. So we're going to we did a couple of things actually. We revamped our quiz and did like a really huge quiz push the month before so that we could start driving more people into her launch. So we got about 1,200 new subscribers through that. And then two, we decided we wanted to experiment with some Facebook ads, very low budget. I think it was like $500 for the entire launch. But we knew with those Facebook ads that the people were going to be colder. So then that's why we needed to do an event so that they could see Abby, so they could talk to her, that they could kind of get to know her a little bit since they were coming a little bit cold. And we knew we were intentionally doing a lower budget because this was an experiment and we didn't know if it was going to work. It did work. We had people that went straight from ads to webinar to converted. So now it's kind of just a numbers game. The more money we're going to pump into the ads, the more people are going to come to the webinar, the more people that are going to convert into the program. So that's kind of like where we say like launching this experiment, look at your numbers, like that's that put into action. And that's how you scale and grow and improve your results every single time. And that's why we always say that your first launch is not going to be your best launch. It's typically going to be the third or the fourth launch.
This is something that I think is really important because Jess didn't just say, hey, I'm going to start paying for ads and that's going to make my conversion better. Like, we're not taking just this assumption, like, I'm going to post to stories and that's where my sales are going to come from. Those things, I think that when you're replicating, and like if you listen to like our past launch episode where we were talking about like you can't do what other successful launches are doing without like putting your own nuance into it, you really do have to validate these things because your traffic during launch on stories specifically may crash and burn because that's what Instagram does. They smell a promotion and they say, just kidding, you get two people watching your stories and it's your mom and your sister. Like, those are things that you cannot rely on unless you have like validated lead source data, you have validated conversion rates and things like that coming from that. So when we're saying launching as an experiment, don't just go, I have $1,000 of extra budget. Let me put it to ads, or I'm not going to do anything because stories usually perform very well. It's validate it, please.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, okay. So then this brings us into our kind of like shift number 3 or tip number 3 is to have like just in case strategies planned out beforehand. So different levers that you can pull that are planned out beforehand because you're not going to want to do it if you're stressed because you're not meeting your numbers, but that you can rely on, but maybe you don't want to have to do it because it's more work or, that sort of thing. So a couple of these strategies could be like adding in like an open house where like people can come and talk to you, like if for all the people that are like clicking but not buying, like where they can come ask you like their, objections. For this past launch, we ended up DMing like anyone who had raised their hand for the wait list but didn't end up purchasing them, like asking them if they had any like specific questions. You could release additional bonuses mid-launch to kind of like pull people over. You're doing this planned out beforehand and you're kind of reacting to what you're seeing.
But you can be proactive with your reaction.
Yes. Yeah. You can kind of think ahead of time. So do you have any other like examples or thoughts about this strategy?
I have seen some really good, they seemed like pop-up mid-launch things, but I know that they were pre-planned and that's kind of like a office hours, like a, hey, like join me on like this day, 3 days before cartons. and, like, let's have a conversation. Let me show you the inside. Like, let me do that. I've seen those do really well. And those are pretty like low lift things. But yeah, I mean, I really think that like we can't just assume everything's going to go right. We have to manage our expectations, but also like create a plan B. And like that plan B, like the goal is maybe not to use it, but like, why wouldn't you if you wanted more kind of thing? So it really is just all perspective on some of these things where it's not failing because you're needing to add in additional things. It's really just smart marketing.
Yeah, yeah. And one that we didn't mention is like pricing pivots. I wouldn't say like lower your price immediately, but sometimes there is going to be like an additional payment plan or something that, maybe you hadn't planned on offering 12 pay. You just had like 6 pay and 1 pay, and then your numbers aren't there. So 12 pay might make it a little bit more accessible for people to get in, or a lot less like risky for people to want to get in. I'm not a fan of payment plans that go past
The
the
course
course
amount.
amount, but I have seen a really successful tactic from one of my clients where they'll offer a 12 pay during launch, and then it's a 6-month program. Midway through the program, because they want to have as many people paid off as possible, they do like a seal the success event where they offer like another payment plan that would be available, and it would have everyone paid off by the time the course ends. And then that's got like another bonus, like incentive tied to it to kind of get
That's
people. And
smart.
he does have a lot of people that take advantage of that. And it's not just the bonus. It's like people were like, well, at first I didn't know if I wanted to invest like all this money in, but now that I'm in it, like I know it works. Y'all are great. Like here, yeah, of course I want to pay it all off faster.
Yeah. Totally. I like that idea. Then yeah, that was I guess another thing that I have seen is the impromptu payment plans, but like you've always planned to do the payment plans because that is something mid launch lull you can interject.
Yes, for sure. And then tip number 4 is going to be definitely protecting your mental load. So we've already talked about making sure that most of your launch tasks are wrapped up before you start promotion, but also think about blocking off your calendar for other things. So a lot of my clients also have one-on-one clients. I would really suggest to minimize any of your one-on-one client meetings during launch week as much as possible. Think about home life. Maybe you get meal prep for that week, so you're not having to worry about that. Maybe you arrange pickup for your kids or that sort of thing, because really, like, especially if you're doing one of these live launches that you're only doing once or twice a year, it's a really important week and you kind of want to treat it as such. Same thing with like, I've had clients that like go on vacation the week before or think they can be on vacation the week of. And I'm just like, no, 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 no. Like, it really is an all hands on deck kind of thing. And you don't know what's going to happen and how many pivots you're going to have to make and how much demand you're going to have to make or what's going to come up. You just want to
Yeah.
make sure that you have the time and space to deal with whatever you need to.
Yeah, I think last year, I think I turned down a huge launch. The business owner was like, "I'm gonna be moving and vacationing in Europe or something like that." And I was like, "No, no, no, no. Like, we need to be doing all of the work beforehand." She's like, "Yeah, no, I won't be able to." I said, "I don't, then we're not an aligned fit." Like, that sounds so stressful. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is what you can do to balance the personal life plus the launch life. Like, it really is so crucial.
Yeah, and then one final thing as we wrap up, I just want to make sure that you're like reframing every launch is just not like a one-time event. You're really building in an asset for the future. So all the content that you're creating right now can be repurposed later or reused during the next launch. That audience that you're building, some of them might not be ready to buy now. They may be more of a tortoise buyer, but they will be ready next go around. And then every time you launch, you're going to be like refining your message a little bit more. You're going to be noticing what's working, what's resonating, and what's not working, and where you need to like tweak it.
If you didn't listen to last week's episode, set up those back end flows that are helping you convert those people into that are non purchasers and upsells for your people who did purchase. It's really important. Go listen to last week's episode because I think I broke that down pretty well.
All
So,
right. So, quick little recap on how to keep your launch vibration high so that you are becoming a magnet for your ideal customers. You want to make sure that, you recognize and normalize the stress. It's just a part of launching. Make sure that you take a growth mindset approach and treat your launches as experiments. Each time you're going to get better and better because you're learning new things. Pre plan your pivots or just in case launch strategies. Make sure that you have a plan to protect your energy and your mental load in and outside of your business. And just remember that every time you're building a asset, it's going to get better and better every single time.
So if you liked this episode, leave us a review, share your favorite Taylor Swift song from this latest album, and share with a Miss Bestie. And until next time.
We are rooting for you.